Welcome everyone to our program this evening. I'm Jess. I'm from Pickering Public Library, and joining me we have Lindsay from Animal Services, and then we also have Christy from the Sustainable Pickering with City of Pickering. So we are very happy to be hosting this presentation for tonight for Adopt a Pond. And Lindsay, I don't know if you would like to introduce our speaker tonight.
Sure. So today I'm excited. This is Lisa, and she's going to talk all about what the program that the Toronto Zoo offers, specifically dealing with Adopt a Pond. As we go through, she's also going to touch on some of the exciting initiatives that we at the City of Pickering are working on to try to help support them for their very specific cause and to try to further the program. Just like Jessica had said, if you guys have any questions, make sure you put them in the chat. And as the session goes, we will be monitoring that, and there will be a part of it later on where you can have your questions and answers. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa.
Great. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. So like you said, my name is Lisa, and I am a wetland conservation technician with the Adopt Pond program with the Toronto Zoo. And I'm also joined by two other people, Regan, who is a wetland conservation assistant with Adopt a Pond, and Avalon, who is a Turtle Island conservation technician with the Toronto Zoo as well. So all three of us will be giving this presentation tonight, and we're so happy that you could join us here tonight. So the Adopt a Pond, along with Turtle Island Conservation, work together to provide conservation programs for monitoring the species, especially reptiles and amphibians in the Rouge National Urban Park area. So this is monitoring the populations, how they're doing, and then also having conservation programs to help the survival of some of these species. So tonight we're going to be focusing on road mortality and what species you might see while you're driving, and then also on why you might be seeing them on the roads and what you can do to help these species out. So to start off, I'm going to share my screen and talk about reptiles and amphibians. So I'll just open it up. Okay, so what is a reptile and what is an amphibian? So reptiles are animals like snakes, turtles, skinks, crocodiles, alligators, and lizards. Their characteristics are that they have drier skin and they have scales. So scales are layered and they're made out of keratin, which is actually what our hair and what our fingernails are made out of. So they have quite tough and scaly skin. And amphibians, on the other hand, have a thin layer of moist skin, and this allows oxygen to be passed through and be absorbed so that they can breathe. And they also have a couple stages in their life, and you may know they start off as tadpoles in the water, so they're fully aquatic, and then they go through metamorphosis and they develop legs. And this allows them to go into their adult terrestrial stage where they can be more on land, and then they can also be in the water. So that's kind of what defines a reptile and amphibian. But both of them are ectotherms, or what you may have heard already is cold-blooded. So this regulates their body temperature depending on the outside conditions. So they can't control their body temperature like our bodies can. Whereas we would sweat if it's hot out. A turtle, if it's hot out, would go in the shade. Same with a frog or toad. So they really have to depend on the outdoor conditions to regulate their body temperature. So they'll either go in the shade to cool off or go out in the sun to warm up. Okay, and now I will stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to pass this on to Regan, who's going to talk to you a bit more about identifying some of the reptile and amphibian species that you may see specifically on the roads in the Pickering area. So there are more species, but that would take probably the whole night to talk about them all. So we're just going to focus on the ones that you would find on the roads and in the Pickering area. So I'll pass it on to Regan.
Hello everyone, I'm Regan, and today I'm going to show you some of the most common reptiles and amphibians you'll find in Pickering, starting with turtles. So the first turtle is the most common one that you'll see in the Pickering area, and it's the painted turtle. They are pretty much characterized as having a dark carapace, also known as the top of a turtle shell, as well as distinctive red markings on the edges of the turtle's shell, as well as on the face and on its legs. The next guy is the biggest freshwater turtle native to Ontario, which is the snapping turtle. They look pretty prehistoric with their tail and their long, long claws. The snapping turtle, not like any other turtle, has a really small plastron, also known as the underside of their shell, which means that they can't hide and tuck in their head and legs and tail like other turtles can. So their main source of defense is to snap. So if you see these guys, it's best to keep your distance and be safe around them. And the next one is the Blandings turtle. And they can be identified by their yellow throat and chin, as well as their very high domed carapace or shell. And then for frogs, we have, I don't know if you guys can see this, the green frog. And the green frog is a pretty distinctively large frog. The base color is either green, bronze, or brown, or a combination of all three. They have dorsal lateral ridges that run only partway down their back. And on their hind legs, there are some barring. I don't know if you can see it, but there are a couple barring down their legs. The next frog is the northern leopard frog. They have a white belly and throat. Their base color is green with rounded, solid brown spots all down their back, neck, and legs. So that's the leopard frog. And the next one is actually a toad. It is the American toad. So this guy right here, they're brown to olive to probably a reddish base color, and their skin is distinctively very bumpy looking. As you can see, there's a line down its back, and that is very distinctive of the American toad, as well as they have a large parotoid glands behind their eyes, which for most, they're right there. They just look like big bumps behind their eyes, and that's very characteristics of the American toad. So now I'm going to pass it off to Avalon to talk about snakes.
Hi everyone, I'm going to tell you about snakes that you will find in Pickering. And I have some slides to show you. So this is the eastern garter snake, which as you can tell is black and will also have 3 yellow stripes along its body. However, you may see individual garter snakes that are entirely black with no stripes at all. In that case, they're what's called melanistic. This is the DK's brown snake, which is light brown and has 2 rows of dark spots, along with dark marks under their eyes and along their necks. And a fun fact about them is that these snakes will release a foul-smelling musk if they feel threatened. So if you pick them up, they might smell almost like a stink bomb. And this is the red-bellied snake, which is gray to black in color with dark stripes. As you can tell, they have a red belly, which they will expose to predators if they feel threatened. Having bright colors is one way of scaring predators. And this next snake is called the milk snake. It is gray or tan with red to reddish brown alternating blotches that are outlined in black. And these snakes have individual markings on their foreheads that are so distinct they can actually be used to tell individual snakes apart. So snakes really do look different from one another. They don't just all look the same. They're like humans, they're unique. Another fun fact is that they vibrate their tail when threatened, which is even capable of making a rattling sound. So in Ontario, there are 37 species of turtles, frogs, and snakes, and unfortunately, 20 of those 37 are considered to be species at risk of extinction. Unfortunately, all 8 of Ontario's turtle species are at risk. So why are they at risk? Well, one reason is habitat loss and fragmentation. And one cause of habitat loss is human settlement. So when humans build a city or a town, we build a home for us, but we unfortunately take homes away from other creatures. Those animals have to go find a home someplace else. This also happens when we clear land for agriculture. There's also something called habitat fragmentation, which is when a large piece of habitat is split up into smaller parcels. And when humans build roads, that also acts as a way of splitting up the habitat as well. And a fun fact is that you can't go 1.5 kilometers in Ontario without finding a road. So why are turtles found on roads? Well, when female turtles are ready to lay eggs, they travel far distances to find an area to build a nest. And that takes place in May to mid-July. When female turtles search out for a nesting site, they search for loose sandy soil and sun exposure. Unfortunately, the side of a road can actually be an ideal nesting site. Snakes are found on roads for similar reasons. They need to travel, and because of habitat fragmentation. Like Lisa mentioned, snakes are ectotherms, and they can't regulate their body temperature in the way that we do. If they need to warm up, they need to go find a nice warm place to bask. And in that case, it's a road. And a fun fact about that is that a male snake will have a difficult time finding a female snake when she releases pheromones if she's traveling over a road. However, if she's traveling over a grassland, it's much easier to follow her. So what about frogs and toads? Why would they possibly go on a road? Well, you're more likely to see them on a road during a warm and a rainy night. And they cross roads in order to reach nesting sites. And you can see them travel in swarms of hundreds to even thousands of individual frogs or toads, which is quite amazing. Don't worry though, they do eventually return to bodies of water in order to lay their eggs. However, these creatures do face other threats. One of them is poaching and the illegal pet trade. People will take animals from the wild and sell them as pets. They may also take turtles out of the wild and sell them for meat or even just to eat their eggs. Like all animals, these creatures are at risk of predation from other creatures like foxes, skunks, or raccoons. I'm sure we've all seen images of manatees and whales with scars on them from boat repellers, but unfortunately, that can also happen to turtles as well. So they can also are at risk of accidents from boats. Pollution is another big issue. Like Lisa mentioned, amphibians will breathe through their skin, which makes them especially at risk of pesticides and herbicides that may enter into the water. And of course, plastic also enters the water supply, which turtles can eat. And that's all for me. So I'm going to pass you on again to Lisa.
Right. I'm going to stop. Oh, no, wait, actually, I do have a slide. Okay, so yeah, so as we were talking about, we are in partnership with many organizations, with the Toronto Zoo and with Adopt Upon, and one of them is City of Pickering. So we're very excited that recently 2 crossing signs went up around Amos Pond, and we have a picture here to show you. So it says, "I am slow, give me a break," and it's kind of a warning to drivers to just be aware, pay attention to what's ahead of you, and when you see these signs, just take note of your speed and try and slow down. So you may see some of these critters coming out of a wetland, so Amos Pond, for example, and crossing the road. So these signs are great, and they're a great way to notify the public of when to be more attentive on the roads and watch out for these critters. So when you're out on the roads, you may see a turtle crossing the road. And Avalon gave us some great reasons for why you see reptiles and amphibians on the roads. So if you do see one on the road, I'll just go through what you can do to help them out in different scenarios. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen for now. So if you see a turtle on the road or any reptile or amphibian, so snakes and frogs and toads, the best thing is to try and help them get across safely. Of course, the #1 priority is your safety first. So if it's safe to do so, you can cross or pull over onto the shoulder of the road and then make sure there's no traffic coming before going to help them. And take note of what direction they're facing. So this is really important. We always want to help them in the direction that they were intending to go, because we don't actually know why they're going across. You may think the habitat looks great on the other side, but there's a reason that they're going in that direction. And if we take them in the wrong direction, they might just cross the road again, which kind of defeats the purpose of helping them. So if you can tell, take note of what direction they're facing before you help them across. So for turtles, we'll start with, if you're going to help them across the road, you'll probably need to pick them up. You can wear gloves if you would like, or like a harder work glove in case they scratch your hands at all. And then for a regular turtle, so any turtle except for the snapping turtle, I'll use a model. You would take 2 hands and hold on either side of the middle. So you want one part of your hand to be on the bottom of their shell, the plastron, and then the other part to be on the top. So that kind of secures them in place. And then always hold them in the middle. Never hold the turtle by their tail or by their, or touch their head area. The tail is actually connected to their spine. And so this can injure them severely, can paralyze them. So you never want to actually hold them by the tail. Always just in the middle is the safest way to do so. So that is helping any turtle besides a snapping turtle. That's how you would hold them and how you would take them across in the direction that they're going. Now, if you are to help a snapping turtle, you would put your hands, so I'm just going to get up. I'll just tilt it a bit. So you can see they have their 2 rear legs. You would put one hand under one of them and one hand under the other, or above their rear legs, but under their carapace. And you would hold the turtle from the back end like this. So this is for the snapping turtle. Most snapping turtles, you can carry them this way. You don't want to put them, your hands in the front area or in the middle area. They can snap from side to side and forward, but they won't be able to reach you from the back. So this is the best spot to hold them. If you are trying to take a much heavier snapping turtle across the road, you can put one hand at the back and one hand underneath. We don't have the bottom side, but it would be underneath on their bottom plastron, on their bottom shell. This is a good method if they're really heavy. They actually can't snap underneath them. So if you're worried about that, you don't have to worry about that. But if you aren't comfortable with that method, you can, I've seen some people use their car mats. So if you have a car mat, you can lift the back end of the turtle onto the car mat and then use the car mat to drag it across the road if it is really heavy and you're not comfortable with holding the turtle. So that's kind of how you would handle the turtles for helping them across the road. And just in general, we'll go into injured. What you do if you find one that's injured, you would hold them kind of similarly, but I'll get into that. And so for snakes and frogs and toads, most likely you'll be able to shuffle them along to the other side. You probably don't need to hold them. They usually will just move along. So you can kind of just take steps behind them to help them get across. But if for some reason you can't, for a snake, again, it's similar to turtles, always hold them in the middle and use both your hands just to give them a good support. Make sure you're actually holding them you've got a good grip. You don't have to hold them too firmly, but just enough to make sure you've got a hang of them. And don't hold them by the tail, same as with turtles, and don't bother them at the front area either. So the best way is to hold them in the middle, 2 hands. You might actually want to hold them near lower to the ground. That way, if one did kind of get out, it won't drop too far. You actually will not find any Massasauga or venomous snakes in the Pickering area. The only one we have in Ontario is the Massasauga rattlesnake, and it is not found in this area. It's found kind of Georgian Bay area. So you can be safely assured that if you're going to help a snake across the road, that you will be able to pick it up. It won't be a venomous snake. But again, you probably won't need to hold them if you can just usher them across. And so for the frogs and toads, it's really important that your hands are clean if you're going to touch them, because as we were saying, their skin absorbs things very easily. So we don't want them absorbing anything that's on your hands. So things like sunscreen and bug spray are not good for the frogs and toads, and not even good for turtles and snakes either. So ideally, you could wash your hands before holding them and then also wash them afterwards, so that you don't get any of their bacteria either. So we'll go along to what to do if a turtle is injured or a reptile, any of the reptiles or amphibians are injured. So I'm going to switch back to my shared screen. Okay. So can you see my screen? I think it's just, oh, there we go. Okay. So what to do if a turtle, snake, or frog or toad is injured? So in this sense, again, make sure it's safe to go on the road and help them. Likely, you'll have to make sure that when you're holding it, you contain all the animal. Make sure it's held together, and you'll need a bin. So this is when carrying a bin in your car is actually really helpful. Also, sometimes gloves are great to keep on hand in your car. So around spring to even fall, would be great to start putting a bin in your car just for these situations. You can even have a lid as long as it has holes in it, and sometimes even a towel to kind of, the reptiles and amphibians feel a bit more safe or eases the pain a bit if they're kind of in a darker space. So sometimes putting a towel just like over half the bin allows them to be kind of in a nice dark area that makes them feel a bit more comfortable. So you would put the turtle or the snake or frog and toad in the bin. If it's a turtle, you would call the Ontario Turtle Conservation Centre, and they're located in Peterborough. And so the phone number I have provided on the screen here, and always call them before you jump in the car and drive over. They need to know that you're coming. And if you can't drive over to Peterborough, which is understandable since it is a bit of a drive, they actually have many turtle taxi volunteers that are ready to come and transport a turtle to the center. They'll even do like meet part way or whatever is required to get the turtle to the center. They will organize. So as long as you call them, they will help you figure that out and where to meet people to get that turtle to the center. So yeah, so that would be for a turtle. You call the Ontario Turtle Conservation Centre, and you would also make sure to give them your location. So location is really important for any of these reptiles and amphibians if they're injured, because when they're rehabilitated or they're healthy again, this is where they will be brought back. So we want to always bring them back to the location that they were found. So if a snake is injured, or a frog and toad, likely the frogs and toads may not make it, but in the event that they do, or if a snake you think could still make it, put them in the bin, and then you could call the Toronto Wildlife Center. So I put the phone number here as well. They also have on their website some forms that I think can be filled out if you are bringing in an animal. But there's our phone number. And yeah, if you're not in the GTA area for the Toronto Wildlife Center, you could look up what a wildlife rehabilitation center is in your area. The Turtle Conservation Center, I should point out, is all of Ontario. So even if you don't find an injured turtle in Pickering, if you're anywhere else in Ontario, you can call them still. So moving on to if a turtle is nesting on the side of the road. So this would look like one of the pictures here. You can see one's kind of got a hole on the left, they're digging. So if you see a turtle that looks like that, it's likely a female that's nesting and about to lay her eggs, or she has laid her eggs. So if a turtle is nesting, you can take note of the location. If it's in the Rouge National Urban Park, you can call Parks Canada Turtle Hotline, and they will actually come and either incubate the eggs. So this will help the turtles grow up, and then they that's kind of what incubation does, is it warms up the eggs for the turtle, kind of gives them a head start. They may also just put a nest protector over the hole, and this will stop predators from coming to eat the eggs or the babies. So that would be if it's in the Rouge National Urban Park. If it's nesting on private property, you could get your own nest protector if it's on your property. I know the Turtle Conservation Center were selling some at some point. So you could call them and ask about that. I've heard of some people have built their own, but there's like specific requirements that the nest protector would need, and that can be found. The Ontario Turtle Conservation Center has a brochure on that. So there is information out there if you're looking to build one, but again, it has to be on your own property. You can't put a nest protector just anywhere, but still worth it to give a call if you find a nest, just in case that's information that someone would like to know. So Parks or the Ontario Turtle Conservation Center. And always give the females that are nesting lots of space, so at least 15 meters. They can get interrupted pretty quickly. If you're too close, they will abandon their nest. And so this is just when they're trying to find a nest, not when they've actually are in the process of laying eggs. If they're trying to find a place to dig, they can be quickly scared and they will move, and then this will just cause more harm to them potentially if they're out on land for longer. So just always give them their space. And once they're laying their eggs, they're in that process, similar to if a human's giving birth, you can't stop the process. So don't try and move the turtle when it's laying eggs. This will just be dangerous for the eggs and the turtle. So just give them their space. So why should we care about reptiles and amphibians anyways? They're great for our ecosystems and keeping our ecosystems healthy. So for frogs and toads, they're a great indicator species for pollution. So this means if there's lots of species, then there's lots of great numbers in an area of frogs and toads, the pollution might not be so bad. So the ecosystem might be pretty healthy. And over time, we look at these trends to see how they're doing. And if they're looking like they're getting a decrease in numbers or not as many different species, then the ecosystem may not be as healthy. So they're great for letting us know how healthy our environments are. And then turtles are great caretakers or janitors of our wetlands. So they eat dead plants and animals and clean up the water and make the bacteria levels low. And then for snakes, they're great in the food web, as are frogs and toads and turtles, but snakes can be both prey and predator. So they may be eaten by birds or raccoons, but they also are predators themselves and eat rodents. And this controls rodent populations and makes sure that the spread of disease is decreased by rodents. So pretty neat how much they help our ecosystems. And yeah, that is pretty much why we should care about reptiles and amphibians. So I think Regan's going to come on now and talk to you about how you can help with our reptile amphibian populations.
So how can you help? Well, you can help by becoming a citizen scientist. A citizen scientist can help collect data, which in turn helps us figure out more about the species and the populations of that certain area. So by becoming a citizen scientist with the Adopt a Pond app, which has 2 programs, which is Turtle Tally and Frog Watch, which is combined into one app, which is called the Adopt a Pond app. This app helps collect and record observations and sightings from different people and citizen scientists, and can help better record these sightings and observations. So for a sighting example, I'm going to go step by step of how to record and submit a sighting. So if you can see on the screen, here's a turtle. So this is the one I'm going to be going off of, but whichever one you see in the wild is what you will be going off of. So step 1 is download the Adopt a Pond app. This is available on Google Play and on the App Store. This is a completely free app, and as you can see on the screen, that is what the icon looks like. So after you download the app, open the app, and you'll see this home page that you see on screen, and click Submit a Sighting, which is in the red bold. All right. So step 3 is select either if you saw a frog or a turtle. In this case, I saw a turtle, so I clicked the turtle icon. Step 4 would be filling out the information. So try to figure out as much as possible of your sighting. So fill in the fields for this date, time, the species that you saw, the number that you saw, the habitat, the behavior, the location, photos, and comments as much as you can. Really helps us in this identification of this data and observation. So for example, once you click turtles, it will, for which species you have, it will list all of the turtles that are native to Ontario. And if you click on them, it will tell you which specific species that you saw. So in this case, I think it's the Blandings turtle. So I'm going to click that one. And then once I think it's that, I will click confirm. And then there will be a little box that will show up, which will ask how confident you are in your sighting. So let's have 2 selections, either confident or unsure. And you click whichever one pertains to you. A helpful reminder though, if you're not sure about your identification, Adopt a Pond at their home screen also has identification guides that can help you if you aren't unsure about your sighting. These, if you click the identification guides, there's also frogs and toads, they're separate, and it will show you the physical characteristics and some interesting things that you can see physically about the animal, as well as for frogs, it also has a recorded sound of their call. So if you can just hear the sound, this is a great way of knowing, and a good description of the species and photos. So another helpful tip, when you're filling out the information fields for submitting a sighting, always try to get the location of where you saw the animal, as well as photos or recording. So if you heard a frog, try to record the sound that you hear or a good photo of the animal. I know it can be very tricky to get a good photo or recording when you're trying to submit something like this. So having a very descriptive comment of what you saw, maybe the sounds that you heard, can better help us use your information. The more detailed it is, the more likely we can be actually able to utilize that information that you submitted. And then step 5, after you fill out all those information fields, is to click Submit Sighting. And that is it. You submitted one and it will be used. If you want more information, you can always be welcome to go on the Adopt a Pond app or email us at aap@torontozoo.ca. So you might be asking, what is this data used for? So we use this data to map out the different locations, all species, and tally up the numbers of the sightings for each species, which allows us to see the positive or negative trends of the population over certain periods of time. This can help us with determining species distribution and the species range, and identify concerns within those ranges. With this more information, conservationists can make more informed decisions on how to better protect these species. And to conclude, being a citizen scientist is a great way to get out there and be excited about the critters that are local to Pickering. It's an easy way to help the survival of reptiles and amphibians in your own backyard. It has a wide range of locations that other conservationists could not get to on our own. So you're really helping the species and helping us all with that. So with that, we are going to the question period. So I'm just going to exit this now. All right.
Well, I'm going to pause the recording.
Yeah, Pickering and animal.
Sorry, you have to say that again without that loud yelling at
Okay,
you.
all right, and then we'll have Christy. So on behalf of the City of Pickering and Animal Services, I want to thank everyone for coming today. I hope that after today's session, if you guys don't have that app, please go out there and download that app. We really want you guys to be our eyes and ears, just like Lisa and everybody has talked about. We need your support. We need to start to get a lot of these statistics. We really want to find out what kind of amphibians and reptiles we actually have, and hopefully they're not getting injured. But if they are, we see that there are concerns. It's really going to help us collectively help all of the wildlife. So that's why we're really, really hoping that you guys are going to take this and go out there and really assist us with that. So thank you for that.